Okay, so it seems like everywhere you turn these days, someone's always talking about mindfulness or manifestation or like finding their spiritual path.
Right.
Yeah, like, have you noticed that?
Yeah.
It's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
And you clearly been thinking about this too, judging by your notes on truespirituality.pdf.
Yeah.
So are we all just chasing the latest trend, or is there something more to this whole like search for authentic spirituality? Like, what does true spirituality even mean in a world of Instagram gurus and like pre-packaged meditation retreats?
Well, what's so interesting is that this document kind of jumps right into the deep end.
Okay.
And it doesn't shy away from calling out what it calls con-spirituality.
Mm.
The author is arguing that a lot of these modern spiritual movements, while they're promising, freedom and enlightenment and all that, that they actually create this whole system of dependency. And that can be really harmful to people who are actually looking for genuine growth.
Con-spirituality.
Yeah.
That's one of those terms that makes you stop and think. So how does the source like define it?
Well, it really boils down to this conspirituality, according to this text, is when the focus shifts away from like your own personal journey of self-discovery.
Right.
And it becomes all about relying on like this external figure or organization to give you all the answers. It's
Yeah.
about, questioning everything, even and perhaps especially those beliefs that you've held on to for a really long time to figure out like what spirituality means for you.
That actually reminds me of that quote from the source, the one by Buddha, Adam Depopov.
Yes.
Be your own light. It's such a powerful idea, but like, what does that even look like in practice?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think what it means is that true spiritual growth isn't about, blindly following someone else's path. It's about cultivating your own inner wisdom and intuition, that inner compass, and using that to navigate your own unique journey. And sometimes that means moving away from, the comfort of these established structures or these really popular teachings and really just forging your own path.
It makes you wonder if part of the appeal of these modern gurus and their promises of enlightenment or, miracles or whatever it is, if it's because they're offering like a shortcut.
Oh,
And it seems like this text is saying there are no shortcuts.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This document is directly challenging this idea that someone else can do the work for you. Like true spiritual growth is, as this source says, it's a deeply personal process of, self-discovery. It's ongoing, and no one can hand you the answers no matter how enlightened they might seem.
It really makes you think about those people who jump from one guru or spiritual group to the next, always searching for that like magic solution.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like the source is saying the real magic happens when you look inward.
I think that's the heart of it, yeah. The text actually uses the term dependency to describe that pattern, seeking external validation. When we put these gurus or these organizations on a pedestal, it's easy to lose sight of our own internal compass, and we become overly reliant on their approval or, just accepting their teachings without really questioning anything.
So then where do organized religions and spiritual groups fit into all of this? Because it seems like the author has some strong opinions about those too.
Yeah, they do. The source points out that while these groups can provide a sense of community and support, and those are really valuable things, by the way,
Right.
they can also kind of become a crutch.
A crutch. How so?
Well, if you're not careful, you can become too dependent on the group's beliefs and practices, and it can stifle your own inner wisdom and intuition. It's not about rejecting everything these groups offer, but it's more about approaching them with a discerning eye.
So it's all about finding that balance between the support that a community can offer and avoiding the potential pitfalls of becoming overly reliant on it.
Exactly. It's like this source is really advocating for a more self-directed approach. It's about asking yourself, do these beliefs resonate with me? Do they align with my own experiences and my own intuition? And if they don't, it might be time to explore some other paths.
It's so interesting how this idea of trusting your inner compass comes up again and again. The source seems to be saying that ultimately, you are your own best guide. But in a world that's constantly telling us who to be and what to believe, like how do we even start to tune into that inner voice? How do we know if it's our intuition or if it's just, what we've been conditioned to believe?
That is the heart of the matter, isn't it? And luckily, the source offers some really interesting suggestions, and I think we should definitely delve into those.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to unpack these suggestions.
And this document takes a pretty, firm stance against the whole thing with gurus promising, instant transformations or, bam enlightenment.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually a whole section called The Myth of External Salvation.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear the source is not on board with that.
Right. And it can be really dangerous. The author is arguing that if you get too caught up in those promises, those grandiose promises, it can actually backfire. It can hinder your spiritual growth because you're always looking externally for validation instead of doing the real inner work.
So no shortcuts to enlightenment then. Is it more about like the journey, not the destination? I know it sounds cliche, but I'm starting to see how it really applies here.
Well, it's a cliche for a reason, right? But this source argues that, genuine spiritual growth is a very personal and ongoing process. It's about self-discovery, and no one can just hand you the answers, no matter how enlightened they might seem.
It makes you think about all those people who jump from one guru to the next or from one spiritual group to another, always searching for that magic solution.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And it sounds like what the source is saying is the real magic happens when you look within.
Yeah, exactly. The text even uses the word dependency to describe that pattern of always seeking validation from outside sources.
That's interesting.
Because when we put these gurus or these organizations up on a pedestal, it's easy to lose sight of our own internal compass. And we become so reliant on them for approval, or even just accepting their teachings as truth without questioning anything ourselves.
So for someone listening to this right now and maybe realizing, wait a minute, am I kind of caught up in that cycle of dependency?
Yeah.
What advice does the source offer for someone in that situation? How do you navigate that?
Well, the author actually gives some really practical questions you can ask yourself for self-reflection. And one of them is, am I only following these teachings because they resonate with me, or am I just afraid to even question them? Or does this path make me feel empowered to think critically, or do I feel stifled? Am I afraid to voice my doubts or disagree?
Those are tough questions to ask yourself.
They are.
But probably important ones if you want to break free from that cycle, right?
Exactly. And, the source emphasizes that just because you're questioning your beliefs doesn't mean you have to reject everything you've learned. It's more about really taking ownership of your spiritual journey, making sure that your beliefs and your practices are actually serving you. It's about figuring out what feels truly authentic to you.
So it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but it's about being more discerning and recognizing that what we believe about spirituality can evolve and change over time.
That's it. This document really champions that courage to examine what you believe and why do you believe it. The author is arguing that, being open to evolving, that's a crucial part of real spiritual growth. And a big part of that is connecting with your intuition instead of constantly seeking validation from external sources. There's a great line in the source that says, "The truth is not far away, it is within you."
The truth is within you. Wow, that's powerful. And it seems to be a central theme that runs through this whole text.
Definitely. And I think it's a really important message, especially in a world that's so obsessed with instant gratification and needing that external validation. Cultivating that inner connection takes work.
It's so true. It's so easy to get caught up in the noise of everything and forget to listen to that inner voice, that inner knowing that's already there.
Exactly. And this text does a great job of reminding us that inner voice is always there, even when we forget to listen. It might be really quiet at first, especially if we're used to always looking for guidance from other people, but it gets stronger the more we nurture it.
Okay, so then how do we do that? How do we strengthen that connection and actually start listening to that inner voice more clearly?
That's a really great question, and that's where this source really shines. It gives some actual practical guidance, and I think we should dive into that now.
So you said this source gives us some practical guidance for connecting with our inner wisdom. What does that look like?
Well, the first thing is, it's not like you just do it once and you're done. It's like any other skill. It takes practice and it's ongoing.
All right, so it's more about building habits.
Exactly. It's about cultivating certain habits of mind. And that takes time and effort.
So then what are some of those key habits that we can focus on to help develop that inner compass?
This text keeps coming back to questioning, and not just questioning authority figures or teachings, but also questioning our own assumptions and beliefs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's about cultivating a healthy skepticism towards everything, even our own thoughts and interpretations.
So even if it's something I've always believed, I should still be willing to ask myself, is this really true for me? Does it still resonate?
Exactly. This source is all about approaching your beliefs with a sense of curiosity and openness, because what we once thought was true for us might change as we evolve and grow, and that's okay.
I can see how that might feel a little unsettling for some people, though.
Oh, for sure.
Admitting that we might be wrong about something, especially something as personal as spirituality, it takes a lot of courage.
It does. But this source makes a good point. It's by questioning and reflecting that we really grow. It's about letting go of always needing to be right and being more open to the unknown.
And that actually ties into another big takeaway from this, the importance of being willing to change our minds.
100%. True spiritual growth isn't about clinging to a rigid set of beliefs. It's about being open to new information and new experiences and allowing our understanding to naturally evolve.
That almost feels kind of radical in a world that seems to value unwavering conviction and always being certain.
I know. But this text really emphasizes that true freedom, and that includes spiritual freedom, requires us to be okay with uncertainty. It's okay to not have all the answers, and that's where self-reflection comes in.
Okay, so the source talks a lot about self-reflection. What does that actually look like in practice? What are some ways we can actually do that?
Well, there's no one right way to do it. It's more about finding what works for you. The source mentions things like journaling or meditation or even just spending time in nature. Anything that allows you to connect with that inner world and really listen to that quiet voice of intuition.
So creating that space for your inner wisdom to kind of come through. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the noise of everyday life and forget to listen.
Yes, and it's not even about reaching some blissful state or silencing your mind completely. The text really emphasizes that it's about learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without judging them. Just being present with yourself and paying attention to what comes up.
It's like building a relationship with that inner voice and learning to trust it, which I imagine takes time.
Oh, absolutely. And the source acknowledges that it's a journey. There are ups and downs. You'll have doubts. You'll feel confused, maybe even lost sometimes. But the important thing is to trust the process, to keep showing up for yourself even when it's challenging. Because ultimately, this document so beautifully reminds us, we are our own best guides.
The truth is within you. It's such a simple message, but it's so powerful. We really do have the answers we're looking for already within us. It's just about doing the work and cultivating that connection to our own inner wisdom.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And the best part is there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's about finding what feels true and authentic for you. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep listening to that inner voice.
That's a great note to end on. So to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into true spirituality. Keep searching, keep reflecting, and we'll see you next time.